Hello, everyone, and welcome to day two of your favorite Vasant Cloud Talk YouTube channel. So, yesterday, in our previous session, so you must have learned about what an YAML is and why it matters. So, today, I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into the syntax and the set of rules that make the YAML work properly. Understanding the syntax is one of the most important steps in becoming comfortable with YAML. So, because even a small mistake can change the meaning of the file. So talking about the very first one, so why the YAML syntax matters? I mean, it matter for all the languages, for all the coding, for everything. But again, why it is specific for YAML? Because as you see, YAML looks very simple, like the one that the project name YAML tutorial owner. It looks very simple, but it is very structured. That's the meaning. And the way you write each line and the spaces you use, like if you see here, there is a space between it and there is no space between it. So that's the actual reason. And the way you group related values all determine how the file is interpreted. And in other words, let me tell you, the YAML is not just about writing text. It is about writing text in a way that the machines can understand correctly. So this is especially important in real DevOps and cloud work because a deployment file, as you see here, or a Kubernetes manifest, a Docker Compose configuration, or even a CI/CD pipeline, everything rely on a correct YAML syntax. So if the indentation is off or if a value is written in the wrong format, the tool may fail or it may behave unexpectedly. Most probably it will fail, and that's what we see here every single time. Again, I'm talking to talk about the indentation and structure. So one of the most important ideas in YAML is the indentation. So indentation is used to show the relationship between values because in YAML, a block of content that is indented under another key is considered part of that key, which means indentation is not just for readability. It's the part of the structure, right? So indentation, it's not just for readability purposes or not just for any beautification purposes. It's the part of the structure. So every single indentation that you see here in the code, it's a structure. For example, if one line is indented one level deeper than the one above it, that's the meaning. So if you see one indentation, so project, and then you see the name, which is one level deeper than the project level, right? And it may belong to the parent item. So the name belongs to the project, the owner belongs to this project, so he is the owner of this particular project. So if the indentation is inconsistent, for example, if you see the name here and if the owner is moved one indentation before or after, it's not a proper structure, and YAML can become confusing or even sometimes it goes invalid. And that is why many YAML best practices recommend using two spaces for indentation and keeping the spacing consistent throughout the file. And again, as you know, in the very first one, we talked about the key value pairs and mappings. So a very common YAML structure is the key value pair, like the one that you see here. Is the name is the uh, key and the value is YAML tutorial here. So this is where a key such as a name or a port is followed by a value. And again, this is one of the most simplest way to represent information in YAML because you might describe an application name, an environment, or a version number using this pattern. And again, as we all know, YAML supports mappings, which are basically nested as a set of key value pairs. And this structure allows us to describe a large object by grouping related information together. For example, we might have a session for a service, and inside that section, we can include its name, its version, and even the port. So this makes YAML very practical for describing the configuration settings in a very clear and an organized way. Again, moving on to the data types. So here you can see we have got a lot of data types coming in here. Uh, and again, this is the most important part of the day two, which is learning the different types that YAML can store. The first one is the string, the one that you see here. So a string is just a plain text. So all you can just see here, message is the key and the value is hello from YAML. It can be a message, it can be a name, or it can be a description. So strings are very common, and in many cases, you do not need to wrap them in quotes. You can just leave it as it is. You don't need to trouble them with quotes. So the next type is the numbers. YAML can represent integers and also the decimals as well, and again, such as a port number or even a replica account, as you see here, that these values are often used in infrastructure and deployment files, right? When you are building a Kubernetes file and when you are opening a port for a particular container, you need the port number. And again, the replicas. So how many replicas do you need for a particular container? So in those scenarios, yes, we need to give them in the decimal or in the integers. And the next thing is the Boolean. So Booleans are another common type because YAML uses true and false to represent yes or no style values. So we don't use yes or no, instead we use true and false. So you might see this in configuration files where you see something's enabled or disabled, or where a debug mode is turned on or off. Again, the null value. So the null value is also important because null means that a value is empty or it's not set. Again, in YAML, this is a commonly written as null, and this is very useful when you want to show that a field exists but currently it has no value. And again, the next one, my favorite one, the lists. So lists are another core concept because a list is used when we want to group multiple items together. In YAML, the lists are written with a dash followed by a space. So here, if you can see, there's an indentation under the fruits, and then there's indentation followed by a dash, and then there is a space after it, right? So that's how we write the list. So this means, again, this makes it easy to show several entries in a simple sequence. So here you can see multiple fruits. Same way, if you are building multiple containers, you can very well build it in the same fashion. For example, you might list dependencies. You can list services or even the environment names like dev, UAT, production. So lists are very helpful when your configuration needs to contain multiple items. And also they're used all the time in automation and in deployment files. And coming next is the multi-line strings and the block scalars. So YAML also supports multi-line strings without any doubt. So they're useful when you want to preserve line breaks or if you want to write a larger block of text. And the reason is YAML gives us a few ways to handle this, and one of the most common is the literal block style, which is using a vertical bar, as you see here, the vertical bar thing here. This tell YAML to prepare or to preserve the test exactly as it is written. So when you add this vertical line, which means I'm telling YAML to preserve the text exactly the two lines here exactly as it is written. And again, there is also a folder style which uses a greater than sign, as you see here. So this style, the greater than symbol, is useful when you want line breaks to be treated more like a spaces. So in practice, this means you can write content in a readable format while you still have YAML to manage how it has been interpreted. And again, some of the common beginner mistakes, let me tell you. So when you are learning YAML, when you are learning when you are as a beginner, there are a few common mistakes that as a beginners we run into. So one of the biggest is the inconsistent indentation. I am very bad at that. And again, the mixing of tabs and spaces. So if you are using spaces, keep using it. If you're using tabs, keep using it. Don't mix them, both tabs and spaces, because the reason is it will cause us serious issues. And the third is forgetting the dash when writing list items. So if you're writing list items, make sure that you're adding dash before it. Sometimes people also write values in a way that does not match the expected type, which can cause confusion later. And again, it's not about just the mistakes. We do also have good news. And the good news is these mistakes are very easy to spot once you start paying attention to the structure. So the more you practice, the more natural these rules become. And again, some of the best practices, let me tell you. So as you start working with YAML more often, it will help you to follow few simple habits. So start using consistent indentation, usually two spaces, and keep keys clearly named and easy to understand. Avoid unnecessary nesting when a simpler structure would work, and add comments when the purpose of the value is not obvious to someone who is reading the valid file. Very simple habits will make your YAML easier to maintain, easier to debug, and easier for your team to collaborate with. And now moving on to the next one, the practical exercise, as every time we do. Okay, so here we have got our practical exercise. So let's quickly go through it. So the first thing, let's first read the problem. So write a YAML for a service with a name, with a port, a boolean flag, list of dependencies. So let's start with the service. So I'm going to start with the service colon, enter with, I'm going to add a double space followed by name and then a space, which is going to be web API. That's going to be the name of my service. And then the port number is going to be again port colon space. I'm going to add the port number followed by enabled. So here I've given boolean flag, so I'm going to add either I can add true or false. That's fine. It's completely about with us. and then the dependencies, the list of dependencies. That's what matter here. So dependencies followed by, and then I'm going to give a tab, and then the dash followed by a space, and then nginx, dash space, and then redis, dash space postgres. Yes, we are done. So all we have did is I created a YAML for a service with the name. I had a port, and then I enabled it, and then I created dependencies with Nginx, Redis, Postgres, right? So that's very simple. So just keep practicing it. You can add more and more key value to it. Like you can add a name, you can add a port, you can even add a metadata, and you can even add a lot of items to it. So just for practice, and the more you practice, the more you get used to it. So finally, to wrap up, the day two, today we saw about the building blocks of YAML syntax and data types. We saw about the various syntax, I mean the best practices and the data types like strings, numbers, booleans, null, list, right? And talking about the indentation, yes, it's structural. It's not something which is we use it for a beautification. It's a structural one, and that key value pairs and the lists are essential. And again, the YAML support strings, the numbers, booleans, and null values. So these concepts may seem simple on their own, but they are the foundation for everything else that you will do with YAML. And again, by practicing these rules now, you will be able to build the confidence for the more advanced topics that come next. So in the days ahead, we will use these ideas to create more powerful YAML structures and see how YAML connects to real world tools like Docker, Kubernetes, and automation system. So until I see you all in the next session, it's bye bye from Vasant and your favorite Vasant Cloud Talk YouTube channel. Take care and bye bye.